Welcome to Mr. Giant Reacts and Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant, back with another reaction for you. And this was suggested to me, and it is a documentary about when Romania executed its dictator on live television. And I thought this would be kind of interesting for me to watch. So let me say this: in my country, we had our revolution, and we had what was pretty much the execution of our prime minister, and that was on October the 19th, 1983. So with this video, what I'm hoping to do here is this, okay? I want to know those of there's people who watch my channel, Romanians that do, who were young at the time. Like I was like 18, 19 when this happened. So in my country. So what I want to get is how it felt, because I'm going to talk about how I felt when it happened in my country. How I felt, not so much so in conjunction with the politics, or as we say, the politics. It's more in conjunction about how the people feel. Because if we talk more about how the people feel, how we feel when it was going on, that would make us more human than it would more political. And a lot of people get so caught up in the political, they forgot the human damage that's been done, psychologically, physically, economically, and stuff like that. So that's what what I would like to. So if you comment down there, I want to know how if you lived through it, and even if you was 9 years old, 10 years old, you're still old enough to understand what's going on. You're still old enough to understand the fear or the anxiety and stuff. So hit me up in the comment section. Tell me what you remember of that day. Tell me what you was feeling that day. Different age groups. That would be cool to know. You know what I mean? Because how we react to a situation like that is a lot more similar than people think, as far as being human is concerned and the emotions of it. Let's go ahead on YouTube and simmer and see what this historical event is
Square
all
in
about.
Bucharest, and it's nearly freezing. Over 50,000 people have been brought here. Many were taken straight from schools or their workplaces. Some have been standing in the cold for more than 5 hours, and they're all waiting for one man, Nicolae Ceaușescu. For 24 years, he's ruled Romania with an iron fist. A few days earlier, protests broke out in Timișoara after a local priest criticised Ceaușescu. When locals resisted his arrest, Ceaușescu's soldiers opened fire. Now, news have spread and protests are erupting across the country. Desperate to restore his image, Ceaușescu calls for a mass rally in Bucharest to be broadcast live on national television. It'll be the biggest mistake of his life. Ceaușescu steps out onto the balcony as he waves to the audience to the sound of almost deafening cheers. But something's off. Almost everyone in the crowd is standing completely still, except for a few people in the front rows. The cheering is fake. It's actually a pre-recorded track blasting from huge speakers around the square. Then, Ceaușescu starts his speech.
Dragi tovarăși și prieteni,
And at first, things seem to be going rather well.
organizatorilor,
But then, just as he's in the middle of thanking the organisers of the rally, screams can be heard from somewhere back in the crowd.
considerând aceasta
This is not part of the pre-recorded track. Someone is shooting, his wife Elena shouts. They're entering the building, his security guard says. Off camera, demonstrators have broken through barriers and are heading toward the Central Committee building right where Ceaușescu is standing. The cameraman has had specific instructions to point it toward the sky if something unexpected happens. The demonstrators are now directly below Ceaușescu, and both him and Elena are shouting at them, telling them to...
A crowd, an angry crowd, a protesting crowd is probably one of the most unnerving things that a human being could be in. It's just a rush of people. And the intentions is not really to hurt others, especially depending on the situation at hand, but it does happen. And it's a kind of a surreal feeling when things like that happen. It's like you're there, but you're not there. And it's kind of confusing. Even though you're part of the movement that's, towards whatever it is, it's like it's an outer body type of experience. And it's not exactly a good one, but it's not exactly a bad one either. It's just like you can't believe that that's happening, You can't believe that. It's an uncanny feeling. It's confusion. It feels human, but it doesn't feel human. Tell me what you think, That's how it was, And everything, and I'll tell you one thing that I noticed is like, whenever we had issues like that on the island, everything just went gray. It's like there was a grayish mist to it. I don't know if looking back, if it's the tear gas that was thrown, or, well, maybe not, because even after that, everything just seemed gray. It's like you're not living in reality, you know what I mean? It's like a disruption of it's a disruption of peace. Though it might be necessary, it's still a disruption of peace,
Stay back.
E o provocare.
This is a provocation, Nicolae says to himself, as he and his wife continue to shout at the demonstrators.
Cetățeni,
Somehow, the security guards actually manage to push the crowd back behind the barriers. But it's too late. And even as Ceaușescu continues his speech by announcing sudden wage increases and higher pensions, after the speech ends, many in the crowd refuse to go home. They've had enough of the lies, the repression, and of Ceaușescu. They spread through Bucharest, shouting things like, "Down with Ceaușescu," and calling for freedom. And when Ceaușescu hears of this, he's outraged. Still in Bucharest, he orders tanks, soldiers, and his very own secret police to crush the protests by any means necessary. And so,
Yeah, he said secret police. That's another thing that showed me there. We had our secret police too. It was purported that my father was part of the secret police. There were two separate gangs that were of the different political party. One was called the Mongoose gang and one was called the Rats gang. And each gang would accuse the other of doing things to people. There was so much confusion, man, Now, here's the thing our prime minister for the second revolution we're talking about. The first revolution that we had was in 1979. The prime minister at the time, like Ceaușescu, ruled for 25 years. Was he a dictator? Not really per se. He just was in there for long and was like not well up on the younger generation coming up. But the army sent out armored cars because tanks was too big, to crush the second revolution. And that's when they executed the prime minister that we had at the time. That was another weird day, man. I watched the smoke bellowing out of the old fort and stuff like that. They just opened up on people, man.
they do. Protesters are shot in the streets, and those who've barricaded themselves are hit by snipers positioned on top of many of the buildings. By morning, there's so much blood in the streets that the military needs to hose it with huge water cannons just to get it off the asphalt. Meanwhile, Ceaușescu is still in Bucharest, and he's relieved. He's convinced that the uprising has been crushed. Surely, now, everything will be back to normal, he tells his wife, Elena. But he's wrong. Before dawn, the first reports come in that massive columns of workers are leaving their factories and heading toward the city centre. And something's changed. The soldiers and police sent out to control them suddenly refuse to shoot, and actually join the protesters instead. Ceaușescu immediately holds a crisis meeting with the remaining members of the Communist Party's Politburo in the Central Committee building. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of demonstrators now surround the Central Committee headquarters, and they're starting to break in. With protesters minutes away from reaching their offices, Ceaușescu orders his pilot to bring a helicopter to the roof. Both Nicolae and Elena are visibly shaken and have to be carried aboard by their bodyguards. Their faces are completely drained of colour. Together with 2 senior officials and 2 bodyguards, they squeeze into the helicopter and take off minutes before the protesters reach the rooftop. The pilot immediately heads toward Ceaușescu's residence in Snagov, north of the city. Here, Nicolae desperately tries to summon military assistance and orders the pilot to get 2 helicopters with soldiers as an escort. The answer from the other end, however, is clear. They're on their own. No one's coming to help. The pilot convinces the Ceaușescus to take off again quickly, leaving the 2 officials behind to lighten the load. Nicolae instructs the pilot to fly toward the western city of Titu, hoping to reach a loyal garrison. But suddenly, a message crackles over the radio. All flights are grounded. Any unidentified aircraft will be shot down.
Oh, wow.
So they have to land. The pilot puts them down by a road between Bucharest and Târgoviște. And with that, the Ceaușescus now find themselves on their own, with just 2 security guards.
Wow.
After a while, they manage to hijack a passing car, a bicycle mechanic who drives them toward the town of Târgoviște. On the way, the Ceaușescus listen in horror as the car radio plays a news report about the uprising's victory in Bucharest. The bicycle mechanic, Petrișor, suggests they hide at an agricultural institute on the outskirts of the city. When they arrive, the institute director shoves the couple into a room and locks the door, trapping them inside. Shortly after, local police arrest both Ceaușescus and hand them over to a nearby military barracks in the city for the next few days. The new government is determined to bring both to trial as quickly as possible. And so, the day after their capture, Iliescu, the new head of state, signs a decree establishing an extraordinary military tribunal to be carried out immediately at the barracks where they're held. Here, they're accused of genocide, of destroying the country's economy, and attempting to flee with over $1 billion in foreign banks. As their crimes are read to them, Nicolae simply laughs. The trial is brief and largely for show. It lasts about 2 hours and takes place without any real possibility for defense or appeal. Ceaușescu himself refuses to recognize the court and calls it illegal. But it doesn't matter. The tribunal finds both him and Elena guilty. The sentence, for both, is death by firing squad, and the execution will happen immediately. Straight away, Nicolae tries to appeal the decision, but he's denied. Before being led out of the room, Nicolae turns to the guards and says he wants to be executed alongside Elena. They accept. Meanwhile, a soldier returns with rope to tie their hands, but neither Nicolae nor Elena wants to be restrained. Both argue with the soldiers, saying there's no need for it and that they're not going to run. But again, they're denied. They're then led out into the courtyard and placed against a wall to the barracks. Elena begins to scream insults at the execution squad in rage. Other accounts say that she starts crying. Nicolae, on the other hand, remains relatively calm in his final seconds and begins singing the first line of the Internationale, the workers' international battle song. The very next day, Romanian television shows footage of the two bodies at the foot of the barracks wall as final proof that the Ceaușescus are gone. In May 1990, Romania held its first free elections since 1937. Over the next 2 decades, it joined NATO, entered the European Union, and began rebuilding.
I remember when that happened. I remember just briefly watching the news about it. Those of us who lived through times like that, we end up having a different perspective of the world. Some of us come out angrier. Some of us come out wanting more peace. Some of us come out having a better understanding of the humans around us, because things like that make you, for some people, and I think for most people, appreciate the human beings that are around you, be it family or just other human beings. But like I said earlier, man, after all the turmoil and stuff that happened on the island, it took a few years for that gray tint on the earth to disappear. I don't know what that was. I don't know if that was psychological, but I saw it. And for the longest while, I wore black and white. I didn't wear any other color. It took years before I started to wear bright colors, which I always loved bright colors, but it took a long time for me to start wearing bright colors again. And it wasn't a depression. I don't think I was unhappy. I guess it was a subconscious type of thing. So I'm saying all of this to say, we're not that different. Ordinary people, we work hard. We try to pay our bills. We try to survive. That's everywhere in the world, man. That's not just in certain places. And I don't think that a lot of us quite understand that, because we are so caught up in whatever struggles we have in our own countries, our own regions, our own states, that we don't realize that there's other people going through. We know that they're going through it. But survival have a way of making somebody become individualistic. And I'm not saying that's in general, because in some cases people do come together and do stuff, But when there's peacetime and you have struggles, you tend to think of your own struggle and not everybody else's. And I'm guilty of that sometimes too, you know what I mean? And I have to snap myself out of it and said, hey, there's other people, that are having issues, But I'm going to leave a link to some reactions that I do on Grenada, and there's going to be one about the revolution and the subsequent invasion. You all could go check that out. And the reason why I'm saying to check it out, see that a struggle is a struggle everywhere, you know what I mean? And ordinary people just going about their lives, we're not that different. We're not that different. We may be of different nationalities. We may be with different cultures, and sometimes different political and religious beliefs. But when things boil down to it, we're all human. We all have reactions that are quite similar in diverse and tragic situations. And if we try to understand each other, we're going to realize that. And it's okay to be from a different culture. It's okay to be from a different country. That just means more stuff to learn. That means more different stuff to enjoy. Being stuck in your own culture and, oh, this is my culture and I love this, without even paying attention to others, to me, that's kind of boring. I want to learn about other people. I want to learn about you guys. I want to learn about your culture, what type of food. I mean, that is so intriguing. I want to learn about how you react and how you feel about situations like this that happens, you know, in where I'm from, where you're from. If you're from Africa, if you're from South America, you understand what I'm saying? And you're going to realize that though there are differences, the differences is what we make them. But the humanity is pretty much all the same. And that's where we have to look at things, you know what I'm saying? I hope you guys learned something. Those of you who didn't know about this, learn something about it. Romanians, please comment down below. Tell me how you was feeling then. Not how you felt about the political side of it, but just how the human being feels, because that's where we're going to get the connection. Because the politics is going to be different everywhere. Even if they have the same similar systems, it's still going to be different. Because a lot of it is based on cultural stuff. So I'm talking about human being, people, humanity. Tell me what's up. I hope you guys have a good day, all right? And let's try to bring some peace in this world.